Good morning, and it's going to be one of those mornings, as you can tell. It's me popping up, grinning like an idiot, while I'm trying hard to make sure that everything is working. It's one of those days when I'm on my own, so you better be careful about is how you treat this morning. Is I I have to say that I am not a dab hand at this technical stuff. But there you are. We're coming to the end of a year. And just before we get into the program this morning, let me just tell you what's happening is this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we shall be as normal. Thursday, I'm not quite sure what we will do in the morning, because in the evening we have our carol party with some invited people to enjoy the Paddock Singers with Ruth Kerr, and they are going to give us a selection of carols throughout the evening, with a little glass of wine, a little tipple, as it were, in front of a roaring fire in the front lounge, what used to be the farmer's bar of the White Hart Hotel. And while we're just mentioning the White Hart, let me say that this morning, as usual, beaming faces. There was Sally, the co-owner of the hotel, as usual, very bright and businesslike at 7 o'clock in the morning, but nonetheless just very welcoming, along with Shannon, who is also quite lovely, quite beautiful, lovely smile, and very, very helpful and accommodating. So there you are. This is Mirador Television, and it's out of the White Hart Hotel, and not quite as technically proficient as when Mr. Max is in attendance with me. But nonetheless, I think we just we will struggle through to give you what's going on. And now I'm trying hard to see if we can get our there we go, get our he said is well, it decides to find its way around, but we are here, and outside it is bloody wet. It is going to be quite warm today. I mean, it's going to go up to sort of 11 or 12 degrees. And it is right now, well, it says it's raining now, and it says it is 12 degrees right now. And it could go up as high as 17. Wow. But it's raining and it's windy. And you can always tell when it's windy because I'm wearing this cap so that I don't have to chase my Tilby halfway down Lewis High Street and have some kind lady stamp on it to keep it still while I go and pick it up. So those are the things which there's a start to the day, isn't it? It is a start. God bless you. It's Christmas week. It is Christmas week. I think what we should do is, before we even go to the, let's be a bit Christmassy before we even start. Shall we? Yes, we shall. We shall go to the desktop, as they say, and we will look at what we've got here, and we'll start off with a bit of Christmassy stuff, shall we? Yes, indeed we will. Here we go. Well, I'm trying hard to get everybody into the Christmas spirit before we go to the headlines, which are mixed this morning, because it's all about the World Cup and Lionel Messi and how much of a star he's become for Argentina. And but same token, the big row about strikes, who is on strike, and the effect it's going to have, and whether it can be averted, and all the rest of it. And which is a bit sad, really. But we're going to, throughout this day, I give you a little taste of Christmas, a little taste of drink, and a little realistic wake up as to where we are and what we're all about. There, I promise you that. Just let me say that we will be broadcasting for the rest of this week until Friday lunchtime, and then we will be off until I think it's almost the 15th. But anyway, it'll be the second week in the new year. The first week we will take off, and we're not. There's no sense in fighting the holidays, and people slowly coming to the realization they've got to go back to work. So we will start on the second week in January, and hopefully we will have a brand new format, brand new programs, a whole host of things to show you. So stick with us. Don't go away, and we will be in the White Hart, because I know some of you like looking at the rafters and remembering that the many famous people, including Tom Paine, sat under these rafters, and much history was forged. Indeed, it was. Okay, let us go now to newspaper headlines. And the Sun. In the hand of God, it says, at last Messi wins the Holy Grail. Now, the fact of the matter is that the Argentina won the World Cup, and shows a picture of Lionel Messi holding the trophy in Qatar. The paper calls Messi the greatest, and quotes a BBC presenter, Gary Lineker, calling the game which Argentina was won on penalties the greatest I've ever witnessed. It was, the paper suggests, the greatest World Cup final since England won in 1966. Well, there you are. If you're a sports fan and a soccer fan, you were treated to a spectacle. You really were. Okay, Daily Express agrees. So the right and the left of the media, surely the greatest final ever, it says. Most Messi inspires Argentina in World Cup glory. But its main headline is nurses will do a deal to end strikes. So it claims that much of the focus is on the strikes taking place in the United Kingdom this week. The Express claims nursing unions are willing to compromise over their pay demands, raising hopes that a deal to end the dispute could be reached before Christmas. Well, as one commentator pointed out, is if it's going to be before Christmas, to stop people going on strike, because once they're on strike, getting them back is absolute hell. A deal would have to be done today. So we'll keep an eye on that to see what's going to happen. The Times, bullying claims could prevent a peerage for Johnson's ex-aide. Well, a name that I don't recognize necessarily is. It would have gone to the Lords, because they that's what they do with each other, give themselves titles and so on and so forth. And the Times also says airport strikes to wreak havoc, and it does have a picture of the Argentine team all getting excited about winning the World Cup. The Times World Cup story says it was an epic match, which ended up in victory for Marvel Messi. On the strikes, the Times says without border forces staff threaten misery and will wreak havoc at UK airports during the Christmas period with Heathrow. Gatwick, Manchester, and Birmingham all expected to be hit. Now that's the border. In other words, that's customs. That's the guy that looks at your airport, your passport, and says, "Okay, on you go." Now you're going to go on strike, which means that you can get to the airport and the aircraft can be waiting for you, but you won't be able to cross. You won't be able to exit the UK, whether you're a citizen or whether you're a visitor wanting to go home. They're quite right to say it's going to wreak havoc, but they're one of a group of unions that have decided to go on strike. Metro, it says mess hysteria, playing on words with Messi, and it's got the picture also of the jubilant Argentine side, but it says its main headline is "This is not our battle." And the troops, the forces chiefs have been warning, look, our soldiers are meant to be in place for fighting and military stuff. Driving ambulances is not our battle. And I think there is a fear that the troops will be seen to be strike breaking. I don't see it that way. I think that it is right and proper for the troops in an emergency. We cannot just see the ambulances stand still while people who have heart attacks and other sudden illness and need to be taken to hospital, we can't let them lie at home. So even though, I mean, it's a temporary thing, but nonetheless, I think that is quite justified. The Metro leads with comments made by Admiral Sir Tony Radakin, the head of the UK's armed forces, over the weekend, who said it would be perilous to rely on troops to fill gaps caused by the strike and could hamper the military's other work. It describes Argentina's World Cup as mass hysteria. Whoa, there we go. Right. Mirror, greatest of all time. Yes, they have got a picture of the Argentine team. Poor old France. If they'd have won, they'd have had lots of pictures of them. But as it is, they get nudged out. But the Mirror has gone on its usual political rant. Cold heart Tories putting lives at risk. The Health Secretary's refusal to talk to NHS strikers could be fatal, say the unions. Well, they would, wouldn't they? And they, to some extent, they're right. But there are two sides or three sides to every story. The Mirror says the government is risking lives in failing to avert this week's strikes by NHS staff, which includes walkouts by nurses and ambulance workers. The article quotes Unite General Secretary Sharon Graham as saying Health Secretary Steve Barclay is holding the country to ransom by refusing to hold talks on nurses' pay. The government has said nurses' pay rise demands are unaffordable. There we go. It's got to be one or the other. The Daily Telegraph. Strikes trap elderly in hospitals. What it's saying is many of the elderly who would have been released from prison, from hospital, is prisoners because there's a great big lineup of people waiting to go to the Crown Court this morning, which is opposite to us. So obviously the criminals are having a pretty busy day in front of the Beak today. Oh gosh, they can't wait to get in. But will they be allowed out? That's the question, isn't it? Strikes trap elderly in hospitals. Is paper says they can't move on. Those people who have been there and are ready to go, but there's no way to get them home, essentially. And the Financial Times is it leaves this country, and it says COVID's rapid advance in China's cities sparks disruption and staff shortages. COVID is racing back into the civil society of China again. Is a huge gallop. And of course, the suggestion is that if it's going to gallop there, it will gallop here. So it'll be interesting to see what reaction our own government will take and our own health service. It also says straight chaos looms as Number 10 shrugs off Tory disquiet over nurses' stalemate. The Tory party cannot, for some reason, cannot get its act together. So it acts and thinks as one. And the backbenchers are at it again, saying to the government, hey, come on, you're not doing it properly. This is how to do it. But they are as useless as a 3-bob note. Yes, they really are useless as a 3-bob note. And they don't get me going on the backbenchers, and don't get me going on politicians generally, because I say awful, nasty things. The Eye, once again, of course, messy on the front page. Delayed 999 call response times are costing lives, warn paramedics. So they're saying that the time that it takes an ambulance to answer a call is too long, and it's costing lives. The Guardian champions Messi's crowning glory. Gosh, the Guardian leads with the football story. But then it goes on. Workers who made jeans for Tesco were trapped in effectively forced labour. Oh, it is having a go at Tesco, the people's store. The Guardian reports that workers at a Thailand factory that once supplied, right? We're going back now. Once supplied. That's tenuous too. So close to Tesco in this country to take a landmark lawsuit against the supermarket giant in the UK over working conditions. The Myanmar migrant workers claim they were trapped in effective forced labor and are suing the alleged negligence over the Tesco's treatment of them and so on. Well, there we go. The Daily Mail. Outrage at Neville's World Cup rant over UK strikes. Apparently, once again, it's the same old story, isn't it? Is somebody is good at sport, and Neville is a good footballer. Let's make no bones about it. He was a good footballer, and he's quite articulate. But now suddenly, in the middle of a broadcast, what does he do? He gets political, and he says that the UK strikers are in worse conditions than the Qatar foreign workers who have been falling from buildings and generally speaking have not had a very nice time. Stay out of it, Gary. Stay out of it. You're not going to win any friends, believe me, in the long run. The Daily Star, my dear darling Daily Star, don't share duvet with a pooch. Apparently, if you let your dog slide down into the bed with you, they overheat under the covers, and that puts them at risk. So there you are, good old Star. They taketh away the concerns of the world and let us know that we've got to look after our pooches. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, let's take a quick look at what the if any, there is local news, and why not? It's Sussex Live, right. A major Sussex road closed due to flooding after the river overflows. Which river was that? And the A21 is closed after the river floods the main road. Oh gosh, it's got a picture showing it. And the A21 and Sedlescombe Road in East Sussex has been closed in both directions for between the A2100 and 422 at Boldshaw after the River Liner overflowed its banks and flooded the road. Well, there you are. That's the latest on the. Well, let's have a look here. Exact number of Sussex police officers investigated for misconduct since 2020. Well, we'll believe that when we see it. The scenic South Downs walk that leads to Tucked Away Farm. Well, they are hidden farms. A weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Quite unusual, says the Met Office. So let's see what the Met Office is saying about our weather. The Met Office has said that its weather forecast for the next few days is quite unusual. Well, amber and yellow weather warnings for ice and freezing weather are in place across the UK today. The big thaw will come with unusual speed. Freezing rain and snow are expected to cause major disruptions in many parts of the country today. That was yesterday, Sunday. But within 24 hours, temperatures are expected to jump by 15 degrees. And indeed, jumping they are. What is it at the moment? It's 12 degrees centigrade now. It is 12 degrees. Gosh, that's almost summer. Oh, dear. Well, I'll be damned. I think that more or less covers the local stuff. There's not a great deal of huge interest going on this morning. So now we'll see what we can do in terms of entertaining you, shall we? Well, why not? Because there are some good things on tap. Now, this is quite serious and very sad because one of Lewis's better-known figures has died. We knew that he was seriously ill, and it is, of course, Kevin Griffin of the Brewers Arms. He was a very, very popular figure, a nice man, committed to his role in the Masons, Masonic Lodge, and very, very dedicated to making sure that it was run tickety-boo, but also dedicated to his pub, which he made over to his children when he knew that he was ill about a year and a half ago. But nonetheless, when he handed it over a pub that was just flourishing and actually managed to sail through lockdown better than most. It's back open now, and it's run, of course, by his daughter, Kathy, and by his son, Liam. They have joint ownership, as I understand it, and they manage it, and they manage it very well. Will they always be there? Kathy, I know, is taking an Open University degree, presumably in the hope of perhaps doing something other. She lost her husband, Paul, a couple of years ago, who actually was a chef in the kitchen. And generally speaking, it has not been a great year for that family, and yet they keep a very, very happy face on the pub's activities for the regulars, but it doesn't matter whether you're regular or not, even if you're the first time in. They make sure that you're welcomed, much like the White Hart. But just a couple of years ago, we made a video of activity at the Brewers, and I managed to dig it out because I think that we should pay this in tribute to Kevin.
Lewes is known for its independence of spirit. Many attribute this independence to the fact that American revolutionary Tom Paine lived in the town. He lived and worked in this building, which was a former pub. Right next door is another ancient pub, the Brewers Arms, affectionately known in Lewes as just the Brewers. There has been a pub on this site since the 16th century. A list of landlords from 1744, when records began, hangs proudly on the wall. The present building was erected in 1905 on the original site of the old pub, called the Ship. The Ship was a pub that lived through a glorious drinking tradition in the town, when it was graced by 9 breweries and 63 drinking establishments. That number has now been reduced to 15, while the number of breweries is reduced to just 1. The much heralded and successful Harvey first recorded producing beer in 1790. Many of those 63 pubs have now disappeared, or have been taken over by big pub chains or major brewers. Perhaps because the independent spirit of Tom Paine has permeated the building, or perhaps because the Brewers Arms is so very well managed, the pub has remained independent. Business heroes of Lewes are stamped with the brand Independent, and the Brewers fits that mould exactly. In 1994, Kevin Griffin took over the pub and has proudly continued the free house tradition ever since. That independence is not likely to disappear. Kevin's family now run the pub, and it is firmly established as a family-run drinking establishment. His attractive and charming daughter Kathy is usually the first person a customer sees as they come through the door. Her welcoming character and warm smile greets both locals and visitors who enter through that front door. Helping her at the beer pumps is her brother Liam, who co-manages the pub with his sibling. The pair have continued the inn's traditions as well as the excellent management style set by their father, to establish the Brewers as a firm town favourite. At the bar, tradition is maintained with a range of Harvey's beers, from bitter to winter warmers. But the spirit of independence flows through this lovely pub, and microbreweries are well supported. Exotically named breweries such as Burning Sky, Dark Star, Long Man and Hopback turn out ales with exotic labels such as Hop Smack, Hop Head and Summer Lightning. There are 2 bars. The front lounge bans the use of fruit machines, jukeboxes or television sets.
We consider the family atmosphere the most important part of this pub. The front bar has no music, so it's very much for conversation and people meeting and chatting. It's a very good place for people watching, and I learn something every day, whether I want to or not.
The back bar makes up for that with big screen TV, music and traditional games such as pool and darts. The esoteric Sussex game of Toads is also played here, and there is a team in the local league.
Yeah, we feel it's important to have the 2 contrasting bars. It gives the customers a choice of what sort of atmosphere they'd like. This back bar tends to be the louder of the 2, which has the pool table, the television and the jukebox.
The pub has a strong relationship with local sporting folk. Every Saturday, the Grass Bowls team piles in from the nearby greens to raise a glass to victory or drown their sorrows in defeat. Like the pub, the bowling club is unique. The greens are ancient, laid on the old castle tilting grounds, where knights in armour knocked one another off their horses with lances.
The bowling people come in every Saturday morning when they've been playing at the old bowling green, which is the oldest in the country, and you can always tell whether they've won or lost from their faces before they even get to the bar. Over the years we've been headquarters for many different organisations. We have lots of sports teams, and also the Church Wardens of St Michael's used to meet here many years ago.
Like most pubs, Sunday lunch is a favourite, and this bar is jammed with diners, regulars and occasional drinkers who drop in for the traditional English roast and a pint. Yes, the Brewers is a very special pub. It's independent, it's family run, it's steeped in tradition, and it has great food and drink.
I've been coming here for years. In fact, I predate Kathy and her family as a regular. With the good food, good service
and good company on offer, I think I shall be a regular for a good few more years to come. Keith Hayes, South Downs Television, The Brewers.
Well, there we are. Kevin Griffin, who will, I believe, be buried on Friday. The service at St Pancras Roman Catholic Church in Lewes. Very popular man. He and the family were always very, very kind to me. And one of the great moments of my mornings, because at one time, this television station was no more than a phone and me sitting outside Cafe Nero on the high street each day, doing a little rant and talking to the locals about what was happening. And Kevin would go to get the papers for the pub quite early in the morning, and we would have a little chat and talk about what was going on in the world. And it was a lovely way to start the day. It really was. Okay, now let's tweak the tail of the energy companies.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Well, there we are. One of the things that is this morning is going to be a bit of a Christmas theme. Yes, I know everybody's excited about football and so on and so forth, but that will begin to fade very quickly, and we need to be aware of what else is going on in the world. So basically, we're keeping an eye on what happens in this week up to Christmas. Now, it was a bit early this year. I think it was December the 1st. It was late night shopping. And we don't have a great deal of late night shopping for this year, but we do have late night shopping for 2021, which is only just 12 months ago. And I think that you might find it quite an interesting little vignette on what it was like on that night, which was the first one from since lockdown. So here we are, the Lewes Late Night Shopping 2021.
Shopping while you are here, supporting all our local and national traders. Please don't forget that we are also raising money for Lewes Open Door. You will see friends in festive attire carrying their collection buckets. Please dig deep into your pockets and donate any loose change that you may, and help, and also go and visit our friends at the Open Door stall in front of Waterstones to find out what they do. Have a great evening of mirth, merriment and mulled wine. God save the Queen!
to go and see Santa. He gave me a toy. Got these. Tonight has been really fun. This is my toy.
We're going to go and get some now.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend this. There's no sales, so don't expect sales.
So Raceit's been around for 70 years and we just had our launch party today with champagne and cupcakes, which was great. We had the mayor come down and the High Sheriff. But yeah, this is our launch day. Everything's gone really well. The shop's been really well received. But yeah, we're super pleased to be here and everything seems to be going down really well so far. So actually the quality of the donations we've been getting has been really good so far. So, but yeah, please feel free to bring it down and myself or Charlotte will be here.
Brilliant.
But yeah.
Do I need to ring, book, or just turn up?
No,
You can just turn up.
Okay, that's great.
Unless it's anything big and bulky, we do appreciate a heads up.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise just turn up and we'll always be here.
Mr. Mayor, how's it been tonight?
It's been, well, let's say it's been different. I'm really impressed at the number of people who've come here. There's so much going on. Whether they're in the shop, I can't really say at this stage. I shall be going around the shop with the mayoress later. But certainly the buzz of the people on the streets has been wonderful. I'm supposed to be judging the window displays so we can have a look at the best dressed window. But to be honest, I'm a little disappointed in that the majority of shop windows appear to be basing their dressing purely on lights and not so much a whole display. So I think for next year, the Chamber of Commerce may have to come up with some parameters about there must be a theme, there must be, and perhaps the Chamber could set a theme because, for example, I haven't seen any nativity scenes.
Look in Harvey's yard.
Harvey's is different, and I'm excluding them because it's not a shop window. The whole yard is a display for Harvey's. Yes, and I've seen that. But looking in the shop windows, this is more enhancing the display of what they're selling. And what now do you think is a display for Christmas? What is a Christmas window display? We'll have to change and set different parameters, I think, for the future. So that's a little disappointing. But there's no note of disappointment in the voices you hear around you. It's actually working.
Lovely, thank you. Cheers, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Claire Vintage Farms. I run Generation Distillers. We're a small distillery. We've got a distillery at home in North Cheney, which is just a few miles north of here in Lewes District as well, which is really nice. We make a range of dry gins, mostly. We love gin, so we make very, very juniper forward gins. And we use locally grown and locally sourced botanicals, and we try to use other local businesses as part of our gin making as well. So we like to use, other local businesses who are independent like us. So we have our labels printed locally, we get our secondary packaging locally, and we try and involve other local businesses in our work. Tonight's been amazing. It's been so nice to be out in Lewes again. We've missed this occasion in the summer and in the winter for the last. In Lewes, really enjoying themselves, even though it's freezing. So it's been a brilliant night, and I really thank Lewes for inviting us to come along.
Fantastic. How long have you been going for, Claire? Sorry.
We've been going for 3.5 years. Yeah.
And what decided for you to set up your business? So tell us.
Oh, it's a bit of a long story, but so my husband's a master brewer. I was in banking. We put our heads together, bought a property with loads of potential for starting a business, and thought we'd build a brewery, to be honest, at the start. But very quickly that changed into making gin as a starter. We put our first whiskey through recently as well, so we're expanding our range over the long term. But we're both really passionate about distilling, the art and the science behind brewing and distilling. And so that's what drew us to do this for ourselves, really.
So how's it been through lockdown? Is it a big impact in operations, or have you managed to keep going?
So we've managed to keep going really well. We've got a really, really great local following, so we've been doing a lot of local deliveries. We also made some hand sanitizer during lockdown, so we were donating that and selling that locally too. So that kept us super busy. But yeah, local people have been really great. We've been managing to do our markets and things like that. So as an essential business, we've been allowed to trade all the way through, which has been great.
Brilliant. And how do people find you online?
So you can buy our products online and we ship through the whole of the UK at www.generationdistillers.co.uk. Locally in Lewes we're stocked at Harvey's, we're stocked in loads of really good farm shops around here as well, Holman's Bridge and places like that. And you can probably have a sip of our gin at some of the local pubs and restaurants too.
I founded a company called The Tuck Shop 17 years ago. We've imported hundreds of tuk-tuks, of course well known in Brighton and lots of other cities around the UK. We've recently moved into electric, so this is our latest model. We've done 70 miles. This one's recently, we drove it from London to Brighton in the inaugural electric vehicle rally, which was quite exciting a few weeks ago. And tonight obviously we're giving some free rides to the lovely residents of Lewes.
So there you are. That was late night shopping a year ago, and a jolly event it was. And I understand that this year's was equally as jolly. We were unable, for one reason or another, to cover it quite the same way, but nonetheless, it certainly has certainly sparked up the town. And just while we're talking about that, I still think that with commitment from the local levels of government, is that this town, which looks as if the Grinch stole it, could do far more. At the moment, it's the, as I understand it, it's the Chamber of Commerce that manages to get the lights up that we have. But, you know, even at night, it doesn't look as if it's full of light. And as the former mayor said there, Stephen Catlin, let's get a look at displays rather than just lights. And that one or two did respond, but not enough, I think. And the council has got to show the way. There's no reason why it couldn't have a display, a proper display. Now, perhaps I can tell you that this Thursday, which is the 22nd, we have in the White Hart at 7 o'clock in the front bar, no, the front lounge, which is where the blazing fire is, where there's marvellous oak beams and everything as it was when Tom Paine was there. And it's and generally speaking, it gives you a real feel for a Dickensian type Christmas. Christmas Carol type of Christmas. And we have Ruth Kerr and the Paddock Singers, all ladies, I may say, singing carols throughout the evening. And I think it'll be rather a jolly affair. And it's our contribution to trying to lift the spirits of the high street. One of the things that is, it's a sign of the times, isn't it? It's a sign of the times. And I am very, very critical of our leaders and our leadership. And I think rightfully so, because they need to set standards. We invited the leaders of our political institutions. We invited the MP. We invited the leader of the district council. We invited several Lewis local councillors from the local council. We invited people from the institutions, such as the Chamber of Commerce and so on and so forth. And we are, generally speaking, we tried to cover as much of representation as we possibly could, because it is a special evening. And it's dedicated to what they all say that they want is a Lewis High Street that's alive and we want a jolly feeling of Christmas, but it's got to start at the top, and it doesn't. Those councillors look after themselves, and they don't look after much else. But the thing that was astonishing to me is there was at the bottom of the invitation that was sent to them is let me know if you're coming. Not an unusual thing a few years ago. Have they bothered their asses? No, they haven't. And it's that sort of discourtesy and just a wave of the hand. And it doesn't really matter. We're so very important. That really gets to me. And I think that is a very, very bad example. And that's why I personally am campaigning to have the lot turfed out. Doesn't matter who they are. I just don't think that they are worthy of being leaders. The thing is, I can't run myself. The funny thing is that all sorts of people have said that perhaps I should run. Perhaps I should run as an independent. And the one man that I have a great deal of respect for, Stephen Catlin, has said, I'd love to run as independent, but I can't run for all 15 as an independent. Why not, Stephen? If you ended up as the sole councillor, then the town would be better off. But it is the courtesy and manners and so on have gone out of the window. It really have. I am bad-mannered. I'm ill-mannered. I rant and I rave, and I shout at our local leadership. And I would continue to do so, even if they were 100% marvellous and angelic. But that's my role. My role is to keep them thinking and keep them on their feet. And a Harvard survey has confirmed that where there is a strong local media, that there is a more efficient local government and a less costly one. Taxes stay down. And so we're not exactly just interposing and saying, hey, here we are, and this is what we're going to do because we feel like it. We're trying hard to put in place some of the things that are happening around the world. And one of the things that I will say now is the discourtesy of most of the organizations in this town who bellyache like crazy is because they can't get the money for this and they can't get the money for that. And then they stomp around saying how well they've done with all sorts of spurious spurious projects. And they are quite capable, too, of putting the old trick is the same amount of money is spent in 7 different ways, but they don't tell you that it's the same money. They make it sound as if they're applying money to this and applying money to that. It's absolutely disgraceful. It is quite disgraceful. And have to say that coming up to Christmas. It's just sad. It's very sad. But there you are. That's the times that we live in. Those times are going to have to change. I find people individually are very helpful and very pleasant. Even when you meet somebody that you've never met before, is you can have a nice time chatting over a drink or whatever, coffee. But when they get together collectively, they become worse than useless. Absolutely worse than useless. And that's the standard of local government that we've got. Absolutely worse than useless. Oh, on paper. On paper, they look great. We've done this and we've done that and we've done the other. But in practice, I can tell you, we made an offer to the Chamber of Commerce to tell people, the businesses on the high street, if they wanted to pop by and tell everybody what they're about, is they could have plenty of time on Mirador television. I haven't seen one. Not one. We made the offer to the council is anytime you want to come in. Now, I might have to say that a couple of years ago, under John Lamb and under Stephen Catlin, they were quite vital, and we had a very good relationship, and we did some nice things with them. But since then, under this latest mayor, who just one night at one event dismissed me totally. I don't care. A lot of people dismiss me, and I really don't care, except that it's the sort of thing that shouldn't happen from a public official. It really shouldn't. And when the next election is, I'm going to actually campaign against all of them. Now, the second thing is getting into my craw. And that is the fact that most of the financial institutions use computers. So you start to get reminders the computer sends out after you've actually paid your monthly bill or whatever. You get all sorts of silly things from the company purporting to be from this department, that, and just spewed out by the computer, because nobody has bothered to tell the computer people to change. And anyway, changing the computer isn't the easiest thing in the world. We are run by the computers. Now, I had a go last week, and I will continue to have a go at one company, American Express. They use American tactics here, which are not acceptable. They send late on a Sunday night, 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. They send attempts to try to speak to people. On holidays, they send out, we would like to talk to you about your account. On the weekends, and actually, what really annoys me is that they are so insensitive that they send attempts to phone while in church time, about 10:45, 11 o'clock. Now, this is totally unacceptable behavior by this company, American Express. It's globalized, so it's run from Chicago or New York or somewhere. It's got its name plastered on a local community stadium, but it is a community stadium, and we could change that name in no time flat. But it already is not terribly popular because of its rates, which it has never deigned to change to suit the marketplace. So quite often you can't use an American Express. And I say, thank God, because if in fact we all stopped using it, then it would shove it out of this country, and its globalization could take it back to the United States. It is totally an unacceptable company. It's a finance company without heart, without understanding. And it is dangerous because some of the stuff that it can be seen as harassment is against people well over 80 and vulnerable. Do they care? No, they do not. Stick it in your mind. American Express. It used to say, that'll do nicely. I say, that will not do nicely. You are the uncaring company. You are the unacceptable face of globalization, and you are the unacceptable face of the corporate sector, and you are an unacceptable face of the finance sector. Get a grip. Because if you keep on the way you are, the same charge that is going to be made against ambulance drivers and so on and so forth, that somebody died, well, you're going to kill somebody with harassment because you don't care about the vulnerable. You don't care about the aged. You just carry on with your harassing techniques, which are fine in the States. Do what you like in America. We're not asking you to change there. But since you won't change here, my advice is, why don't you close down? Because if we can start a campaign, a crusade to get rid of you, we will. Unless you change your tack. But you see, the guy who sits in the Chicago office, Mr. Big, won't even know of the complaints. And if he did, he would just wave his hand and say, oh, stuff them. Companies like that, we do not need. Other countries may accept it, but we in Britain do not need that. Because it also, going back to what I said about courtesy, does not show the courtesy which we try to say to our youngsters is, be very careful how you harass people with demands, and be very careful about when and whether people are vulnerable. American Express, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're not, nor will you be. But I am going to remind people on a daily basis, American Express, be ashamed of yourself. And if the footballers say, oh, yeah, but the Amex Stadium, anybody could have sponsored that. They try to pretend that they're the good guys. In fact, one of the things that they do is at home games is they actually jam the A27. Wasn't supposed to happen, but because the cars get one after another while they're finding the place in the car parking lot, is they start to spill back onto that road, holding up traffic, making the buses late. Now, you've got to do a lot of thinking, American Express. And if this program can be shown in Chicago, and I think it's Chicago when you're head, if not in New York, is start to listen. Because the companies that don't listen to those who are potential customers and those who are protective of the society in which you operate, you really are not going to, you're not going to find much sympathy. And you can shrug it off at the moment and you say it doesn't matter. Well, it may take years. But these are the sort of things where people say, oh, do you remember? Risk is something that is taught in most corporate companies. And quite rightly so. Townsend Torreson ignored risk, thought he could do what it liked. It sank the Herald of Free Enterprise, killing almost 200 passengers coming out of the harbor at Zeebrugge. It doesn't exist anymore. There are other companies that have done similar things, ignored the risk, thought it didn't apply to them. Well, you take a second look. American Express. Take a second look at the way you behave, because it isn't really very acceptable here. He said. Remind you who we are. All right, okie doke. Let's see now. Is the theme this morning, because it's on for Christmas, is drink. Woo-hoo-hoo. And we've already shown you our tribute to Kevin Griffin, who died earlier this week, and who ran a very successful Brewers Arms, and he will be much missed. Not only was he an excellent businessman, he was also a very nice man, and it's sad that he will not be there with his beautiful manner over the bar and his lovely personality, and which he, without fawning, made sure that he looked after his customers, and for that matter, his staff. Now let's stay with the drink then, because I discovered a little thing about a bits and bobs thing about drink. Let's spend 10 minutes or so enjoying it.
Over the road from the shops, held up by ship's timbers, is the Gardener's Arms. There seems to be a tradition in Lewes, although no one admits to it, of omitting the epithet pub or tavern. This pub is called by locals simply the Gardeners. And the Gardeners it was. The origins of this pub go back to when it was an ordinary house, owned by a gardener. Often, after work, he would invite other gardeners into his front room for a drink. Eventually, it made sense to formalize the ritual, so it turned into a pub. The Gardeners is a true pub. Unusual now, it only serves pork pies and sausage rolls. Yet each year it's in the top tier of finalists for Pub of the Year. Stood proudly on the riverbanks. Harvey's Brewery, the key industry of the town. The bloody high street of a tiny town.
You'd think the old man would give up pubs for Lent or something, wouldn't you? Well, think on. He even gets absorbed in how the pubs were in January's time. Luddite.
Flanked by the church the rectory and the people's homes, stands the inn. In its shade and beneath its roof, men of all degrees and of all opinions meet in comradeship and comfort. Walk through any English market town and you'll find the inn at the centre of its life. On market day, the people from the country around meet there to discuss the trend of prices, their children's health and their home affairs. It's the same in the villages. When the sun warms the earth, they sit outside and watch the world go by. At the English inn today, there is a hospitality that to the host is just as much a sacred charge as it was to the monks and barons in the Middle Ages, who first gave bread and ale to travellers. Often the only sanctuary in out-of-the-way parts, the monasteries had a lodge open to pilgrims and other wayfarers. Later, these lodges became separate establishments and were eventually run as inns, under such signs as the Pilgrim's Inn. One example of monastic origin is the Bull, which gets its name from the papal bull, or bill, not the animal. These inns of England have seen history happen in their yards. Pilgrims and warriors have trodden their stairways. Here, medieval knights refreshed themselves on their journeys to the Crusades, to fight under the banner of St. George. The inns have preserved much of England's architecture. The early inn has preserved some of the finest carvings and treasures. Like the church, it was a sanctuary. Hence, most of these carvings have a religious meaning.
English sparkling wines are beginning to win an enviable reputation across the globe, and that reputation is turning into sales. British supermarket chain Waitrose has reported a 188% increase in sales of English sparkling wine last year, and that trend is expected to continue. The soil and climatic conditions in southern England are remarkably similar to those of the Champagne region in France. So much so that leading French champagne house Taittinger has bought land in Kent and has begun producing English sparkling wine. But the owners of English vineyards are not prepared to take second place. Ridgeview Estate Wines in Ditchling has been producing English sparkling wine since 1994. And recently, the company received the prestigious accolade of having its wine served by the Queen to Chinese Premier Xi Jinping at a state dinner. Ridgeview is a family business which has a strong sense of history when it comes to its products. The vineyard's trademark is Merit, named in honour of Englishman Christopher Merritt. This wine pioneer made a presentation to the Royal Society in London in 1662, explaining the process of making sparkling wines. That was 30 years before the French began producing champagne. Last year, Ridgeview produced a bumper crop and has similar ambitions for this year. The product can be seen at a variety of produce events in the region, notably Brighton and Hove's Food and Drink Fair in May. And the winemaker plans to repeat the success of last year when it introduced its range of sparkling wines to New Yorkers. Want to check out the claims that rumours there are plenty of stockists within the Lewes district? As one might suspect, it's available at Harvey's, but also Larder in Ditchling, Middle Farm on the road to Eastbourne, and of course the English Wine Centre at Drusilla's Roundabout. These successes have created a rush to develop new vineyards in Sussex. Licence applications last year were up by 40%. It's not just sparkling wines that are gaining a reputation. Still wines have also been around a long time. Both are now beginning to take the French market by storm, as demonstrated by the French purchase of acreage in Kent. The key question now is if growth will mean a larger and more expansive English wine industry, or a homegrown luxury product suitable for big and glittering occasions. For the moment, only time will tell. Trevor, where's my drink? Lalla Daniels of South Downs Television at Ridgeview Vineyards, tasting a true competitor of French champagne. So next up on Food Glorious Food, a new way to sell wines in Lewes. Symposium has a friendly, laid-back atmosphere with staff who clearly have a passion for wine. Symposium has a limited range of Sussex wines, but what they have is top drawer, and its range of quality grape types is within most budgets. Whether it's the cheese and meat platter, a single malt scotch, crunchy local bread or a glass or two of decent claret, this wine bar has found a unique way to sell its wines. And in today's world of big is better, the Symposium has found its niche.
Hey guys, in this video I'll show you how to prepare at home an incredible liquor. It's gin. For this you need 1 liter of 50% alcohol, 17 grams of juniper, berries must be navy blue and I've slashed them with rolling pin. Then you need 7 grams of coriander seeds, 2.5 gram of orange peel, 1.5 gram of lemon peel, 1.5 gram of cassia bark, and a pinch of hyssop, a pinch of anise, a pinch of fennel, a pinch of licorice. Fill up the jar with alcohol and all ingredients and shake it. I let it infuse for about 6 days in the dark place, shaking it every day. After 7 days of infusing, it's time to distill it. I gotta use a simple moonshine still. I've dismounted a metal gauze from the shelf for better flavoring. By using a gauze, I filter the infusion into the boiler and add water. You need to get a 33% ABV liquor. The smell is incredible. Let's start distilling. I've set up a simple moonshine still, so only the cool box is working. Temperature's rising and I see first drops. I separate about 20 milliliters of 4 shots just for safe. I've set out the range at 1000 watts and start separating of gin. It's already half a liter, so let's check out the smell. It's very fresh. It's like smell of fur. I've got about 600 milliliters and an alcoholometer reads 42% ABV. Let's stop separating, cause we have tailed. ABV of gin is equal to 67%. I stretch it till 45%, leave for 1 week and test it. Let's start testing our homemade gin. It's stretched till 45% and it was infused for 12 days. First of all, I'll test it in pure form. The aroma is very rich. It has nice, tender and harmonious aroma. The main player in flavor development is juniper. Not strong odor, but it's mild. And the juniper is contrasted with coriander. Let's taste it. This also holds true for the taste. Taste is tender and mild. It's not a strong kind of gin. This one is tender and mild. I like it in pure form. So now let's test how tasty it's with tonic. I'll make a classic G&T in the ratio of 1 to 2. Well, let's taste. Delicious. Now I know how I drink it. Incredible combination. You can feel light bitterness, but it's just the right taste. It goes very light. The ratio of 1 to 2 is nice. Taste it. You know you can drink it all cause it's silky and freshalizing. As for me, the combination of this gin with Schweppes tonic is ideal. In conclusion, I'd like to say that I like this recipe very much. The combination of gin and Schweppes tonic is delicious. The taste of G&T is tender and it combines with all the herbs very nice. Just try to make it by yourself, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Thumbs up for new recipes, subscribe to my channel. See ya!
Well, little snippets on drinking at Christmas there. Just to remind you that it is a season to be merry. And I suppose that we make excuses for having just a little bit too much, but why the heck not? It is Christmas. And for many, the best holiday of the year. And we all look forward to it enormously. I suppose that Christmas creeps up on us in some ways, even though we're reminded early in November when people start to sell for Christmas. But it then does seem to accelerate. And when we, this time next week, Christmas will be over. Christmas Day will have gone. I am privileged to have Christmas lunch, now that I no longer have my wife or my family close by, with a former BBC radio great, Alex Kirby, and his wife Belinda, and his two sons and their girlfriends, and it's always very jolly. I saw Belinda yesterday because I was a good boy and I went to church. She is a stalwart of the church. She's a great organizer. But I shall have a really good day because I always do. And they don't stint on the drink or the food. It's always a jolly good Christmas. It really is. And if I get the opportunity, I do actually go to the pub because most of them give away to good customers as a Bloody Mary, which is absolutely essential for Christmas Day. But what sort of Christmas Day do we advocate? We should, I think, well, here's Christmas Eve as we see it on Mirador.
God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ the Savior was born on Christmas Day to save us all from Satan's power when we had gone astray. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. From God our Heavenly Father, a blessed angel came, and unto certain shepherds brought tidings of the same, how that in Bethlehem was born the Son of God by name. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy. Comfort and joy. Tidings of comfort and joy. Oh, tidings of comfort and joy.
Well, there we go. That's Christmas Eve, as celebrated by Mirador. Let me just remind you that this is and right now, it's a funny old day. It really is, because it's going to rise to almost 17 degrees. I mean, that's almost summertime. We were luxuriating it. It's a crazy world. Here we've been freezing our nuts off for God knows how many days. But now, right now, it's 12 degrees centigrade. The rain has stopped. And looking out of the window, I can see it looks a bit threatening, but the rain has stopped. We are going to get some brief periods of sun. And there's a moderate breeze. Now, I'm always very worried about a moderate breeze, because a moderate breeze takes my Toby hat and sends it hurtling down the high street. And so from moderate on, I put on my flat cap just to keep the nozzle warm. But it is 2 minutes past 10, and it is the 19th of December. The 22nd is a signal day here at the White Hart. We have carols and a glass or two of wine for people. We want to make sure that we make a contribution to the high street, because I am the first, absolutely the first, to start to yell and scream and stamp my little feet, because I claim that the Grinch has come and stolen Christmas from Lewes High Street. It really, they try hard. They put up lights and they put stuff in the window, but there is nothing much done to raise the winter gloom. Nowhere near what other communities do, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. And it's the sort of thing that the local council, the town council, should. They put a Christmas tree and they put a few lights on the front of the town hall. It's not enough. Thinking needs to be gone into celebrating that. Just the same as the town comes totally alive on bonfire night. So it is time that some thinking was put into what happens on the high street. We have opted to make a little contribution by having this carol and mince pies and glasses of wine to an invited group of people. The fact of the matter is that, as the matter is, that not enough of this sort of entertaining is done. Yeah, there are lots goes on in Lewes, and under the impression that it doesn't. But the days of glory in this hotel, when there were banquets and dances and all sorts of things going on in the very fine facilities they have for banquets and so on, it's not the same. And I think that the first step would be to get back to getting the town used for what it's good at. But it just seems that nobody cares. Nobody gives a sod. A lot of the things that go on that are rather nice, but they are egocentric, if you like. They are done for a small group of people who have specific interests. What I would like to see is things which get the general public, the general populace of Lewes bouncing around. Yes, late night shopping did that, but it needs more. It needs more oomph to this time of the year. Absolutely more oomph. So here we are, looking for oomph for Christmas, and are we getting it? I don't know. There's something here called the Brewers' Christmas. Let's just see what it is, because it's an old one. Well, there we go. The original one that we did some years ago. And I'm happy to say that our approach to Christmas is still the same. We still love it. And we still get a kick out of this time of year. and so we should, except that once in a while we need to put a kick up the ass of some.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
I just love that one. I really do. As the question that we let's see what else we might have that is sort of fun to enjoy this morning. And well, one of the things that it's always time for ghosts at Christmas, isn't it? So we got a little covey of ghost stories. So let's try this one, the Ghost Train, and it a short story written by Charles Dickens is supposedly inspired by this incident, this train crash, which took place historically in the tunnel just outside Clayton Tunnel, just outside Brighton, and on the way to Lewes. Dickens was said to have, because he was in a train crash himself, was said to have heard about this and read about it, and decided that his short stories about this train crash should. So you can buy a Christmas story if you like, a Charles Dickens Christmas story about the train crash. But this is the one that inspired him. Let's go to Clayton Tunnel again.
Many people find commuting by train tiresome. But one of the pleasures of taking a train to London is that it passes through some of the most beautiful countryside in the UK. None more so than the view of the countryside as the line approaches Clayton Tunnel, just north of Brighton. The tunnel is the longest on the line, at 1.25 miles, running under the South Downs. It's unusual because the entrance is not the usual railway brick. It is instead designed to look like the gateway to a castle. On top is a cottage built for the railway's lightkeeper in 1849. The tunnel itself was opened in 1841 and the cottage added later. idyllic. But after 1861, it became a nightmare, or at least for those who believe in ghostly goings-on. In August of that year, a night train left Brighton, travelling north to London. Partway through the tunnel, it stopped at what it thought was a danger signal from the lightman. The engine driver was correct. The railway official had indeed given a danger signal, but the train had rushed past him before pulling up. Thinking the train had cleared the tunnel, the unfortunate lightman gave the all clear to a following train. And it slammed into the back of the first train in the dark, killing 23 and injuring 176 more. It was the worst ever accident on the line. And people walking on the downs over the underground passage have reported hearing the screams of the passengers as the trains piled into each other. The line is now also a direct line from Lewes. I've travelled through that tunnel 1,000 times. I've never heard a scream other than the screech of the wheels and brakes. But I've never walked over the downs at that point either. And I turned down an invitation to stay in the cottage overnight. In fact, I get tense each time I go into the tunnel, knowing what had happened more than 165 years ago. But my fellow passengers carry on reading their newspapers, obviously oblivious to both the tragedy and the ghosts. I could sometimes scream at them. The ghosts of Clayton Tunnel. Eerie. Bloody eerie. Well, here we go, back again, and now one of the things that we hope that Suzanne Mouchot is going to join us from New York. It's Christmas week, the last week before we actually take a break. And let me just tell you about that, by the way. We will be broadcasting up until this Friday. And on Thursday, we hope to have
well, we are going to have, unless the weather clamped it down, is carol carol service. It's not. It's a lovely group of lady singers, the paddock singers, who are coming here to sing carols from 7 o'clock until 10 o'clock. And we are going to offer people a mince pie and a glass of wine and a glass of 2 wines or whatever. And hopefully bringing together important people, but also generous and gentle people for Christmas Eve, and to help set the high street alight. Of course, like a lot of things, it upsets me that people don't behave the way I think they should. But that's me. I'm just the conscience of courtesy and politeness in this town, in this community. Anyway, that's on Thursday. And Suzanne may well join us via the airwaves at that. We don't know how it's going to go. We've never done it before. But we'll play it by ear. And even if it goes pear-shaped, it's something for all of us to get with it and make sure that we have got a good Christmas in offering. Anyway, then we will close down, except for if anything terribly vital happens. We are able to pop up at any time. But generally speaking, we want to, I think it's the 8th or the 9th of January that we will be shut until, and then we will come back with a bang, new ideas, new programs, new people, and we hope that it's something that you will enjoy. Yes. We hope it is. Now, why you couldn't hear me? Let's we had the bloody past of the tiny town, and I think it's episode 6 is what we were looking for, and there it is. So let's go with episode 6 of the bloody past.
I think kissing is a very pleasurable way to start a day, and a very pleasant way to start a program. So let's start this episode with a kiss.
The front desk, and they'll look after
Lewis, remember. Perhaps the most famous sculptor of the 19th century was French artist Rodin, and arguably the most famous statue he carved was called The Kiss. As you can see, the images are slightly erotic, but in this day and age, hardly shocking. That wasn't the case in Lewis, of course. Art-loving but slightly eccentric American Edward Perry Warren lived in Lewis on School Hill, and in 1904 commissioned Rodin to make a copy of The Kiss for him. Rodin duly obliged, although they argued about the price of 20,000 francs. But once it arrived, the statue was confined to a shed adjacent to the American's house on the High Street. It languished there for 10 years, until a public unveiling was called for in 1914.
Hooray! Great art was about to be exposed to Lewis at last. But no, this is Lewis.
A local schoolmistress had taken a peek, and her peek had convinced her that the naughty statue should be shielded from everyone's eyes. Everyone's eyes, apparently, except her own. Primly, she stormed down to the council and demanded that the kiss should be hidden. The council agreed, and the famous statue never ever had a showing in Lewis. Until 100 years later, that is. Apologetic about the shabby treatment the Kiss had received at its hands, the Lewes Council welcomed the return of the statue. And a group of townsfolk raised enough funds to welcome back the Kiss. Its unveiling was a huge success, and thousands filed into Lewes Town Hall to see the forbidden fruit. What started with a kiss ended with a public embrace, and a chance for the two models to show their affection in public. The Kiss, incidentally, is now well travelled. Often away from the Tate Gallery, where it sits in splendour, the Kiss is now in New Zealand. History is often based on old records, confirming that either this happened or that happened at a given time or at a fixed place. But much of history is also gleaned from the recollections of people who were present, or the tales handed down from father to son, mother to daughter, and then graphically brought to life by modern tellers of tall tales. So it is with the Killers of Thomas à Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury in 1170. Canterbury isn't that far from Lewes, so the story may well have some merit. The story goes that as the conspirators fled, they stopped at St. Thomas's to rest. On entering the church, they threw their cloaks on a table. The table was level and steady, but the cloaks kept slipping to the ground, no matter what the men did with them. In medieval times, cloaks falling to the ground like that were a sign of guilt. The people of Lewes saw what was happening and raised the alarm, forcing the villains to flee north. They were, of course, hunted down and condemned to spending a long period of service in the Holy Land. True or false? It depends on who you talk to, but I am an old romantic. I prefer to think that it's true. For example, some written records say that revolutionary Tom Paine never debated his rights of man while he lived in Lewes. Try telling that to local historians. So certainly the murderers of Thomas à Becket could easily have taken refuge in the church which now bears his name. The church's history, supported by archaeology, shows it was there, or at least parts of it, in pre-Norman times, so its existence is not in doubt. Lewes was a key crossroads route at the time, and there is plenty of evidence to suggest people escaped to France down the River Ouse. So, murder most foul. Killing an archbishop is a pretty naughty thing to do. Killing one that, albeit was having a spat with his boss, was still dear to the king, was a pretty silly thing to do. Did they pass through Lewes as they tried to escape? It depends on who you talk to, but I am an old romantic. I prefer to think that it's true. The Lewes of today is considered to be a university town. Professors, administrators, lecturers, and even students live in the town, plying their trade at one of the many universities nearby. The University of Sussex, Brighton University, the Sussex Downs network of colleges are all within easy commuting distance, so Lewes is attractive. There are also top-graded schools in the area, such as Roedean, Brighton College, and Bede's. But Lewes has a long and deep history in the field of education. A lady called Agnes Morley believed that young people should be given a formal education in establishments of learning. So, in 1514, she started one.
Good morning.
It stood near to the River Winterbourne, here in Southaven Park.
Come and sit in.
In 1540, it became Lewes Old Grammar School. The school remained on the site until the 18th century, when it moved to its present premises on Lewes High Street, just outside the Old Town's West Gate.
Come and sit down.
Well, you know, I told I guess it, Tom.
Lewes Old Grammar School, listed as one of the oldest,
oh, yes.
if not
oh,
the
yes.
oldest schools
in
the country. Where did it all start?
I think it's about 23. I think one or two venerable places like Winchester and Eton.
But you're feeling better in yourself, are you?
We are, but,
you're feeling better in yourself.
So it is pretty ancient.
I mean, it seemed it was a great flood of schools suddenly started in that period. Any reason?
There are a number of reasons. One is the fact that we think of the disappearance of the monasteries as specifically a Henrician thing, the dissolution, dramatic dissolution, including, of course, Lewes Priory. It was also felt to be a worthy thing to do. And of course, people at that stage, in this transition between medieval piety and the early modern period, thought that a charitable work such as providing education would be quite good for the welfare of their souls after they'd passed on. It did go through a rather thin patch at the end of the 19th century and for the first half of the 20th. Many similar schools closed. Rye, for example. And the reason, well, Lewes just really hung on by the skin of its teeth. The reason being the provision of free elementary education from 1870 onwards, and the fact that people didn't need to send their children to Lewes.
Any sort of concept of what the early school that was in Southover Park or the grounds of Southover Grange would have been like?
There are pictures of St James's Hospital engravings, which, like the buildings that housed the free school, as it was called then, to start with, was a kind of outbuilding of the priory. It was probably something of that sort, fairly humble building, because after all it was providing charitable work for poor families. It was a lovely location, but it was rather prone to flooding, for one thing. We've got some records about numbers of the scholars, who by that stage numbered 20. And there nearly always were 20, not usually poor, deserving families. But we don't really know how many more pupils there were paying fees. Just little snatches of evidence from the 19th century. It was probably pretty grim at Lewes Grammar School, as by that stage it was being known. We've got some photographs. The earliest photograph of the school is from the 1890s, and the boys, and actually, strangely enough, a few very young girls seem to have been educated here as well. They look rather forlorn and down and pasty-faced.
Describe how the school is today, because it is seen as a pillar of Lewes society, if you want to put it that way.
I think that we now have around 600 pupils on roll. It's no longer a small school, but I think that if it does have that reputation, and I accept that it does, because that's what I hear as well, it's because that in spite of that growth in numbers, we have kept a sense of humanity.
The school has researched its background for the College of Heralds. As a result, the coat of arms bear the Priory's crosslets, indicating its roots were established in the Priory. The school is among the oldest schools in Britain. Logs, as it's known, now maintains strong traditions and holds its religious ceremonies in nearby St Michael's Church. The church has been in existence much longer than the school. There is evidence that it was established in connection with a Saxon monastery that existed in nearby Morling. The origins of the building, though, are debated as much as any other medieval item. Some argue that it was the church of the castle. That would mean its roots go back to 1080 or so. But records don't support this. They note that the church was built in 1140. Whatever the date, it's one of the oldest Norman churches in the country and played a huge part in the development of the town. But unlike the Priory, St Michael's fought off attempts to destroy it as Henry VIII swept through Britain, dissolving monasteries and churches likely to maintain links with Rome. Perhaps that's why it maintained a ritual close to that practiced by the Roman Catholic Church, generally called today High Church. That gave rise to conflict over the years with the authorities. The town had become supporters of what was generally called Puritanism. The cause was probably the revulsion felt at Queen Mary burning people at the stake for religious differences. And of course, Tom Paine was married in the church to Elizabeth Olive. Actually, Lewis might have operated a dating agency many years ago. Not only did Tom find his missus in Lewis, but so did John Harvard, founder of the famous American University. Harvard's family was devastated by the plague, reduced to 3 from an original 11. He was born in Southwark and went to Emmanuel College, Oxford, where he met the resident of Ringmer, a small village near to Lewis. He married the Friend's sister, Anne Sadler, in 1636 at a nearby church. Then, like Tom Paine, left for America, where he founded one of the most famous universities in the world. Back to St. Michael's, and on its walls is a small monument to Sir Nicholas Pelham. Nick's helmet hangs just above the monument and is now an artefact of considerable worth. More about Sir Nick and his famous family after I've trotted across the road for some refreshment.
Oh, there you go, there you go, there you go. A little bit about Lewis there.
Yeah, well, you're a very good historian.
But, here he is.
You missed your vocation.
The old man is here. Let's try and get that light from behind you. There you go. The old man is here, and I'd like to know what the hell's going on with the energy market, first of all. And don't start talking until you're back in front of the microphone, because they can't hear you.
Look, I've got the Christian spirit. I've got my little jumper.
Right. Right.
Nice. I'll just get the coffee.
They'll bring it in. Sit down. You're on. You're on. People are waiting in bated breath to hear what the hell you're going to have to say. Right. And not only that, he's very proud of his sweater this morning. Very proud. He's looking very sartorial.
No, that's
very smart.
It's the Christmas jumper you're for.
Christmas. Oh,
reindeers,
Christmas.
you know.
This is you're defying the Grinch out on the high street, are you? Right now, seriously, because Stuart, I just got a note from my supplier, which is Octopus, and they're saying that the subsidy is going to end in January, and that therefore the prices are going to start to go up for gas in January. Now, what's your understanding?
My understanding of it is not. It's April.
April still.
When Hunt became Chancellor of the Exchequer, he knew that. See, go back to Truss, where she, under pressure because she wouldn't have it, she brought in a tariff of £2,500 a year.
Right.
Now, you have to understand it. The tariff is set by the regulator. Was set by the regulator every 6 months, right? 1st of December, October, and the 1st of April. And without telling us at all, the regulator just changed the rules, moved the goalpost, and made the tariff set, the energy cap set, every 3 months. Okay? So when Truss did this, right, she thought by having 2,500, that would keep all the poor people. It's still a lot for them to say off, but it was better than. Because if you go back to the status quo ante, which would have happened, it was clear that for that October 21, it was going to go up to 3,500 something. Okay, that's October 21. Because scroll forward. Then it was the tariff was the regulator set there, so it was 4,200. Okay, because every 3 months, and then one of these was terrible, think tanks that the Conservatives take on. They said by the end of 23, there's going to be a tariff of at least, I think it's £6,000. Well, that's 500 quid for every household.
Really?
That's not just fuel poverty, that's absolute damn right destitution.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And along comes Hunt to try and fix things, but he said that we will just leave that where it is for the moment, and then he announced that he would put it at 3,000, and that's where we are as him. And he said that would be on next April, and then it would go from there. And
tell me this, Stuart, because I mean you are a homeowner. You got a lovely little house in Lewes. I live in a delightful but quite small studio flat, which is perfectly happy for me. But I've figured out what the company, my provider, says I've got to pay, and it's going to go up to about this £2,500, which they say will be for an average 3-room house. Now, how the hell, if I'm paying that for a small studio flat, have they got it right for people with the 3-room bedroom house?
no, that's just a national average. But you're quite right. But you see, when these suppliers, they're a bunch of profiteers. That's all they do. I've explained this many times to you and to other people.
Yeah, but keep on explaining, because
right, okay,
it then imposes itself on the.
It all starts with Mrs. Thatcher, didn't it? Because she privatised the energy companies in 1991.
Right.
That led to an oligopolistic cartel of 6 companies.
Right.
British Gas, EDF, French, E.ON, German, Empower, German, Scottish Power under the Spaniards own a lot of that, and then it was SSE. Now SSE has become a renewable company, not a energy supplier. So you can put number 6 as either Octopus or OVO, depending who you like the look of.
Right.
And these people, okay, they're like the banks. They follow my leader. If X says I'm putting this up, Y does.
Right.
And A, B, C does.
Right.
And they get this money and they're supposed to spend it on getting in energy and improving investment, improving the quality of everything. Instead, they pay themselves incredible bloody wages like the bank. Now, this is crazy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
When you think about why the nurses are striking, meanwhile, the bloody bankers have had their bloody released. Any captions on them are now released. They can put the pensions where they flipping well like.
Yeah.
I believe I'm becoming ranting like you now, but it's a very serious issue. The thing about it is that what is the thing? You lost the point because what we're talking about, the cat energy cat, weren't we?
Yeah, but it's and you were saying how the amount was calculated. Up until April, and that now is giving a little bit of the history as to why it's going to surge after April.
Yeah, because the rules will be the Santo quo, the free market rules, the status quo ante, if you like. So they would put the tariff up to 3,500. They changed the rules, made it not every 6 months, every 3 months. And therefore, it went up to 4,200. But that's an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
And what happens? The 6 cartels are poverty for it. British Gas from January 1 to June made a profit. They paid with poverty and they made a profit of £1.3 billion. And what did they do with that £3.1 billion? They gave their chief executive a salary of 2 million quid. Right? Yeah. And what do they give to directors? God only bloody knows. The earth and everything else.
Yes.
I mean, these cartels are pernicious. They really are.
Yes, they are. But you know, I think we are in an age where we've got people in charge, whether it's in politics, whether it's in charities, whether it's in quangos, or whether it's in the corporate sector, who only think their main drive is to give them as much money in their pockets as possible. They've forgotten their duty to the society.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the thing that the bankers got, that was to actually get retail away from the investment. And that was a bloody disaster, because the investment they did is bloody mortgages, subprime mortgages to people in America. Bingo. Bust and go.
All right, let's change tack a little bit, because most people know that you are a journalist of considerable note. He's an author as well, and his book will be finished just after Christmas.
No, about March. I think.
About March now, right? Okay, and then it will be published, and you can find out all about the naughty things he did in Northern Ireland and Vietnam under the guise of being a journalist. No, he's a very substantial journalist, and along the way, he's picked up a lot of friends and colleagues. And so what we do, we have a little program here called Conversations with Stuart Dolby. Now, Stuart, you've had some very prominent people on, but perhaps you just explain how you go looking for guests, because they come from your background, don't they?
Well, yes and no. I mean, as you say, I do know a lot of people over the years, because I've had a very, very interesting life, if you like to put it that way. So I've got a load of friends from the Vietnam days. I've got a load of friends from my schooling, difficult, and I've got loads of friends through the Financial Times. I mean, the Financial Times was also, through a job there, it was also a social life. And that's very, very interesting, because, you know, I mean, there was marriages, like I married somebody who worked there, and all kinds of things. But the FT is a terrific paper, I think, and I'm very proud to have worked for it. And also, I have to say this, it's got a wonderful pension. That's even better. But yeah, so I phoned up my friend Tony Robinson, who was the FT's Moscow correspondent for some years, and East European essays. And we had a very interesting conversation about the Ukraine. And that was one very interesting thing. And he wants to do another one now.
That's good. That's excellent. Can I just red herring at the moment? I see that in the inside pages that Rishi Sunak is urging European leaders to keep on pumping money into Ukraine, for the Ukrainian army. Now, it was plainly obvious that the Russians were being beaten. Are they still being beaten? And is the result of this going to have a negative or positive impact on the energy prices?
Well, this is the most interesting thing, because, as I told you, there was an article in the FT that said the parallel with Ukraine is the Korean War. In fact, the Korean War didn't end, right? Because what happened was the Chinese came down, right? And McCarthy, the American general, he came the other way. But the whole difference is that Korea is a peninsula. So all you have to do is draw a line across the fucking thing, right? Yeah. So therefore, what happened? There was an armistice arranged, basically, that the Chinese would interfere, and then the war just tinkered on. As you know, a couple of last days, North Korea is still pushing nuclear plants all over the flipping place, trying to fly out everything out of Taiwan and South Korea. So it's very weird. In terms of the energy impact, it's very difficult to know, because the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest has the biggest reserves of oil than anybody else. I think America's second, and I think Russia is third. I wouldn't be entirely sure of that, because my figures might be out of date, but I think that's what's coming. But Putin is not doing much war anymore, is he? He's just sort of...
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of in a twilight zone, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't seem to be attacking, but they're not getting out. He's actually having to bite the bullet. Is that the Ukrainians fall back and actually are beating him in many ways.
You see, the other thing is when he's talking about the Korean War, the Ukraine is in slightly different, the same thing. It's a bit like Vietnam. Vietnam had a 1,000-mile border with Cambodia and Laos, and it's almost indefensible to defend that kind of border. But in case of Korea, right now, Ukraine, so forth, trying to actually stave off all the Russian-speaking part and having their bit isn't bloody going to be taking an awful long time.
Yeah. Actually, this issue of borders is quite interesting because also the Northern Ireland border, with
about which we know
absolutely, but it's also quite wild and almost.
Oh, have you read Colm Homan's book about the border? It goes round and round and round like that. You go about 400 miles for a 50-mile road. It's like the local buses here. If you want to go to Underold, you have to go right through most of West Sussex.
but it was so difficult to monitor. Is apparently farmers in both the north and the south would actually drive their herds over the border, get a subsidy, drive it back, get a subsidy, drive it back, and nobody knew it was the same herd.
I used to go on a Sunday night. I used to drive up from Dublin to Belfast with all the swindlers and all the rest of it. And one of them said to me, "Jesus, man, those pigs are going round and round and round, in and out, round and round about. They must be falling over by now." Falling over with dizziness. The pigs were sent across one to get the thing. Then they came round and got the bloody Dublin one.
Now, Stuart, the one thing that I've learned about you is, we've known one another for years on and off, of course, but one thing is you are a very traditional man, and you like celebrating events and holidays and so on. So what have you got on deck for Christmas?
Well, it's a bit tricky because my daughter and my daughter-in-law and son-in-law, we're going to come on Boxing. We always have a Boxing Day party. John May comes to it usually because he's a neighbour. And we have family. But you see our family, my family, it's a difficult situation. There are 3 nuclear families, basically. Like my eldest daughter lived in Suffolk. She has a stepfather there, and there's a whole sort of family there. Then if you talk about Brighton here, then Leslie, my new wife, she's got, what has she got? But in terms of relatives, she's got 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and 21 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
And they're all given presents, every single one of them.
Woo-hoo. You get a job lot of something somewhere.
Do I get any thanks for it or letters? Well, look at it now. Like I sit there doing. We're in a mad situation. We can't send a letter anywhere. We're on strike. We can't get on a bus or a train. They're on strike. We can't even go to hospital because they're on flipping strike. The only places where you can retire to are the pubs, and a lot of them are disappearing. But it's weird. It's quite weird.
Yeah. How many people will be sitting down around your Christmas table?
Well, it depends. We don't really do a table because it's such a small house, but we have a big buffet. So
right. Okay.
About 12, 13.
About 12 people. Yeah. I mean, that's very jolly. I mean, I can't remember who, but I was speaking to somebody I think I travel on the bus with in the mornings, and they were saying, Christmas is not a time to eat alone. You need to have company. Yeah. I'm going to have lunch with Alex Kirby.
Oh, I know you do that,
and you know Alex very well, and he also is a sort of a well-established journalist with a good past, particularly in the environment. You did actually have some a joint venture with him at one stage.
We did some mentoring at Sussex University. No, his slightly different operation to mine. He's climate news about what's it. Right. We do on ours, do research articles and write about the companies. It's slightly different, but the idea was that at Sussex University, we would actually teach people in the media studies, and I would teach people how to write articles rather than lists and essays and that kind of thing.
Right.
And we worked for a while, but then, in one pandemic, and that was that. Couldn't go.
No, well, I mean, a lot of things fell, but I mean, it is actually good that we've got in Lewes. Okay, so we're all a bit aged now, and we're a bit over the fence. But
You're talking. There's a flipping baby boo in this town. There's prams coming at you from all directions.
Well,
it is absolutely a baby boom.
Absolutely, but I was talking about the journalistic community because we have quite a large number of distinguished journalists who live in Lewes. Well, we do indeed. I mean, you scratch the surface, and suddenly here they pop up all over.
Oh yeah, and I think they've got that wonderful guy who writes for Private Eye, haven't we? What's his name? Ian. I can't remember the name.
No, I can't remember.
There's a couple of retired Reuters man. There is
there's Dilly Barlow, who was ex-BBC. A number of people who wander around, and it's very good. We really need to try and get a few of them to put their faces on here, because whatever else. And yes, okay, we are teller of tall tales as journalists, but we have a wealth of experience from around the world. And as indeed Stuart comes and gives an account of what he's done, and much of it is appropriate to life here, because we are now in a period where we can find out what's going on elsewhere, and there's a great interest in it.
Well, what you learn about journalism, the first thing I learned about journalists is that nobody can keep a secret. Nobody can keep information to themselves. So you then get to the way to do this. The shortest distance from A to E is through B, C, D, and E. Now, when I was talking to a friend recently who's got 5 children, and I interviewed all 5 of the children, and they all had different stories. So your skill is to get, as a journalist, is to get the information out of people. Now, I might be vain here, but I'm rather good at getting information out of people. Well, as a journalist, it's absolutely vital, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also, you play on the fact that nobody can keep a secret, which is really
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
Isn't that the truth? Yes. So actually, we live in a very interesting town. And this is where your conversations with Stuart Dalby do 2 things. First of all, bring some people with great experience and well known in from outside into Lewes, but also bring people who are living in Lewes that sometimes nobody's aware that they're here, and to give their story.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just about to contact Emma Tucker. And she was born in Brighton, and her father's still, I think, alive. And she went to school here and decided had a school magazine, which she was editor of, and so forth and so on. Scroll forward to now, and she is the editor of the Sunday Times.
Wow.
By way of working for the Financial Times and the actual Times. But being editor of the Sunday Times, as a woman, my dear, women in charge of the Sunday Times. When's it all going to end, for God's sake?
Well, of course, the Sunday Times has some very distinguished editors, hasn't it? Harold Evans springs to mind.
Well, he was the most distinguished.
Yeah.
I mean, he created the modern Sunday Times. He brought in I don't like Murdoch's papers, basically. I don't like Murdoch, but I mean, in this case. Well, he's trying to wreck our media. He panders to the lowest common prejudices. He puts fear into sort of the poor people, and then he goes in for titillation. Big breasts and everything.
yes. Page 3.
That's why the Sun has got such amazing circulation. And the real thing that annoys me is that all the stuff about Trump. Okay. Trump. Now,
yes.
I said to Max, who's always Trump, as you know, that I think Murdoch's had it for the next term. He said, why? Why do you know that? I said, well, because Murdoch is now told his New York Post, which again was gutter press, to actually have a go at Trump. So his papers were coming out, Humpty Dumpty Wumpty Trump, and this was the thing, what happened to Tony Blair. When he was trying to become Prime Minister, he begged on his hands and knees for Murdoch to support him, because he knew that all the Sun people, he says, we ought to bloody well, read the Sun, because that's what Murdoch said.
Well, it's almost time for us to pack up. It's 10:59. But one thing that Harold Evans had in the Sunday Times was other people's Sunday lunch. Do you remember that?
It's still on. Hunter Davis started that. A day in the life. It's called.
Right.
Yeah, a day in the life.
Well, I think that you and I should actually start a program here, other people's Sunday lunch. And what we'll do is we'll go around and invite people to invite us to have lunch, and then we'll talk about it on the Monday morning.
Right. I'll leave you to do that.
Okay. Stuart, always good to see you, and you'll be here on Wednesday. Hopefully, we'll have two things from Stuart, but is the bringing up to date Energy Matters, which is in front of all our minds at the moment, because of budget, but also I would hope that we do have a guest for him, because a conversation with Stuart Dolby is well worthwhile watching. So until later in the week, from the old man there and from me, the young sprightly, as
the dashing young journalist. Young my bum, honestly.
We will say toodle pip.
Bye bye.